Hi, this is Jack, and this video is called I Let My Guard Down and Then He Pulled the Rug. Hey, welcome to my channel. If you're new here or haven't yet subscribed, my name's Jack. I'm a transformational coach, and this channel is all about transformation, authenticity, personal growth, and dating. If you want to be part of a community of people who are involved in real development, this is the place to hang out. This channel has a reputation for not having tips, tricks, and gimmicks, but it's real development for real adults. So if that's of interest, hang around. And right off the bat, if you want to get a little bit more into this world, I have a free resource for you if you're a woman that dates men. It's called my guide checklist. It'll be the first link beneath this video. You can just click that link and it will take you through 9 simple steps that you can run any guy through. It takes less than 5 minutes and will give you a good sense of if he's actually investing in the connection with you. All right, so let's get into this video. I let my guard down and then he pulled the rug. So I want to say straight off the bat, if this is an experience that you are having or have had, this can be incredibly painful, incredibly disorienting. You might have had deep resentment build up over it. You might have been really badly hurt. So let's start off with some compassion for your experience. This is a difficult thing to have happen. Maybe it's happened to you more than once. Maybe you fear that it's going to happen again. Maybe it has happened and now your guard is up even further as a move to protect yourself. So if any or all of these are part of your experience, I'm sorry, I know it can be really hard, but I want you to hang around because I think this video may help you. So one of the things I want to distinguish early in this video is that this may not have been an intentional act from his side, right? It seems to me the proportion of men who want to invest their time in reeling a woman in to the point where she's just interested enough to lower her guard so that they can reject her effectively or abandon her or do some variation of that. I'm going to say that's an incredibly small subset of men. And if that is your strategy, that's not really a great place to be leading your life from, right? So there's nothing redeeming about that orientation. What I could imagine might be more true than that this was an intentional move is that it was an unconscious move, right? Or it was a move that happened once the greater depth of the connection, right? So maybe you let your guard down and you started to share more emotionally intimate details about your life, let's just say. That actually that had him realize that he wasn't wanting or ready for a deeper connection with you, right? For whatever reason. Now, he has a right to that. Obviously, it's difficult if that's happened you've been more open and exposed and now he's nowhere to be seen, right? So I have a lot of compassion for you. And we don't want to be in the business of making too many assumptions about what's going on for someone else, right? Meaning maximum curiosity, minimum assumption. So unless we know that this was some kind of intentional act, let's not assume that, right? Let's assume that actually there might be something true about this, meaning this is not the guy for you to be getting in deeper with, right? This is not the guy for you to be letting your guard down with, because actually he can't contain you, be with you, connect with you in that situation for whatever reason. Now, could it be that he's got some healing work to do? It could be, right? I do notice that gets thrown out quite often as an explanation, and I'm not sure if that helps you get closer to the truth unless you know that that's true. But it could be possible that there's just like a depth of emotional connection that a guy is not available for, either generically or with you. And it doesn't really matter in this instance which of those it is, it's going to hurt in the same way. So it could be that it was intentional. I doubt it. It could be that it's unconsciousness, right? Sort of meaning some people don't even know that they don't want to go deeper, and there's parts of them that come in to protect them from going deeper, right? Like, I'll give you a different example. I'm in coaching conversations with people and we're just starting to get to some deeper, richer territory, and then they'll say, so I was watching a video of yours, right? They'll take it out of the moment where we're in the heat of the potential transformation and go someplace else, right? Which may in their mind be connected, but often it's a deflection of the actual presence and connection and depth of the conversation. So we all do this in certain ways, right? Even if the instance that you've experienced is a much, bigger degree of that going on. It could be that a guy has known he doesn't want a deeper connection with you. It could be that only really clarified for him when the conversation started to get to a certain place. Or I'll put it in another context. Sometimes guys realize they're not up for a deeper connection if they get into a conversation that's sort of like you have a right to have a fight with them type conversation. And they might realize that they're not actually up for that style of connection with you, right? Sort of meaning they're happy for you to be friends, or they're happy maybe for you to have some kind of casual connection, but they're not up for a level of sort of mutual investment where we've got to like work through issues or fighting together. Now, if it's going to be a real relationship through time, you're going to be dealing with that stuff, right? Let's just be frank and sober, right? Every relationship's going to hit some of that stuff. But if the guy steps off the bus at the first stop where that happens, he's not really into the connection with you enough that there's going to be any kind of robustness to deal with any of the challenges that might come up in a relationship, right? So for what it's worth, even if you're hurting and even if you feel insulted or disrespected, neglected, or any of these other difficult experiences, you actually want the guy to get off at the first stop who wants to get off at the first stop, because it's not a good investment for you, right? It's like the going didn't even get that tough and the guy's not that interested. Now, he has a right to that, right? He has a right to his authentic choices, whether they're consciously or unconsciously made. We don't have to make him wrong, but what we do want is the discernment from your side, which is not to live in a fantasy that, how can I convince him, or how can I get him the healing that he needs, or how can I, sit down with him and his mother and we can square this. You want to be out of that business. You want to be in the, how about inviting a guy into my life that actually, if the going gets a bit deeper or tougher, he wants to hang around, right? That's a much better signal or green light for you to be looking for. So what could you do to avoid this situation happening in the future? So I've got a couple of suggestions for you. So the first one is that maybe you titrate, right? Which is a bit of a fancy word, but it basically just means, well, if you think of titration, right, which is a process in science, if you're dropping one chemical into another, that you're going to titrate it, meaning you're going to do it in small and manageable chunks, right? So if you titrate something, it means that you approach it in a small and calibrated chunks kind of way. So rather than go from, I've got my guard up, and then maybe I've had a few drinks, let's say, or we've had a particularly enjoyable night, and then I kind of drop it a long way down. I actually want to be in the business of, if I'm going to drop my guard, I'm going to do it very slowly and through time and consciously, right? So the meaning I don't suddenly get exposed. I'm actually going to notice what happens through time. Maybe I'm going to share a little bit more of myself. I share a little bit more of myself and I notice what I'm getting back from the guy, right? If I'm always getting a good response, it's much less likely that I'm going to have that kind of cataclysmic drop off, or that I'm really missing that he's available there to be with me in some of my deeper experience. The second thing that you can try is, before you share stuff that's sort of difficult, or what we might, even if we don't always want to think of just positive and negative emotions, but let's just hold that frame for the moment, like negative emotions, sad experiences, traumatic experiences, difficult things from my past, that before I go to any of that, let me practice sharing positive experiences and positive wins, right? So let me share some things that I'm celebrating in my life, right? Let me share some things that are going well in my life, or highs in my life. Let me start by sharing on that side and see if he can be connected to my experience, right? Does he care that I just got a promotion at work? Or does he care that I just, finished that manuscript, or I, finally did that piece of DIY, or, I said something, to someone in my family that was like a really important and touching thing for me to say, right? Sometimes it's a bit less vulnerable to start on the positive emotion. And then over time, perhaps we get into sharing some more of our difficult stuff. One experience that I've had shared with me a lot is that quite early in the dating, someone might basically kind of share their life story, right? Which might include some of their most significant emotional events, their most significantly traumatic events. And then they've sort of had the guy distance himself. Now, again, that's probably unlikely to be a guy that's going to be good for you to be in connection with. So I'm trying to help you frame that, even though this is difficult right now, it might be something that you can also take some positives, right? Because it's almost like he's revealed his colors to you. But it may be that you've got a pattern there that you could look at. Do you have to tell the whole story in the way that you usually tell the whole story? I'm much more interested in you getting present to what is true and real in this moment than necessarily the whole story of the past, right? Meaning there is a kind of vulnerability that is more palpable and real to the moment, sometimes than the vulnerability of sharing your whole story, right? Even if that does also feel vulnerable. I don't know if you get the difference there. One is a script that I sort of know, right? I kind of know how to tell the story of me. And another is noticing, if I can slow down and touch into this moment, is there something different for me to say? Is there something true and real that's coming up or being revealed in this moment, more rooted in presence. Sometimes that is ultimately a little bit more of a more vulnerable thing because it's more real, right? It's less practice, it's less habitual. But it might not hurt so much if you just noticing what's true for you to say in the moment and a guy kind of drops it or doesn't get it or disconnects from you. It might actually be less vulnerable than if you think, oh, he didn't even care. I told him about, my childhood abuse or some really difficult traumatic experience and he's basically dropped me. And now I'm interpreting that as like, I'm not good enough or I'm definitely not good enough or I'm not lovable because when the guy hears my story, he doesn't want to connect with me. So I'm saying let's just put most of that stuff aside for a moment until you're in a more, committed style of connection or you've had more experience of how it goes. Let's start with sharing some stuff that's more positive wins, and then let's go and share some stuff that's more real to this moment if I get more present. And then we can perhaps deal with the significant emotional events when the container's there, when I've been gradually through time lowering my guard and I'm noticing he's there to hold me, right? Now, the final thing I want to say is, you might want to practice not having your guard quite so up always already, right? Because the risk I see is people are quite guarded and then at some moment, boom, and sometimes that's supported by alcohol or other things or like a peak experience or just a sort of, oh, I'm not sure if I should go here, but I go here, right? So what might be better is for you to learn how to be less guarded typically, but then slower to release your guard, right? So rather than being, I'm, 100% and then I drop it to 0, like what would it be like for you to walk in the world with more like a 50 or a 60 or a 70 or an 80, and then gradually, know how to go from an 80 to a 60 to a 40 to a 20, then going from 100 to 0. Do you see what I'm saying? What might that look like? Well, it might look like sharing a little bit more of yourself more often with more people. Now, even outside of the realm of dating, it might look like practicing just being slightly less guarded, saying the thing that feels a little bit vulnerable or edgy to say, noticing who wants to have a more connected, committed place in your life, right? There might be a subset of your friends right now, and there's a few of them you can actually dial it up into a more authentic friendship where you guys share and reveal at a deeper level. And that could be something that you discover through time. It could also be that you become comfortable noticing what in the moment is right for you to share, that you have a right to your privacy, that, the guy might be dating you, he might ask you something and you don't necessarily have to answer it, or you don't have to answer it fully if it's not authentic for you, right? If actually part of you saying, well, hang on a minute, I'm not really ready. Or maybe the guy starts talking about, his ex-partner and you might say, I'm actually not really wanting to hear that right now. Like in due course, if we continue to date, I'm happy to get all in it. But, right now I'm not that ready to talk about it, right? So it's also you claiming your experience, your desire, what is true for you. And I think if you practice doing that and you practice the titration and you practice revealing a little bit more, a little sooner, dropping your guard through time rather than like a big 0 to 100 kind of thing, I think this territory will show up for you differently. Said differently, if things sit a bit differently in you, I think you're going to fear less whether someone else kind of gets it or not. And you're going to have better data to notice who actually deserves a more full and deep reveal for you. So if this is useful and you are a woman that dates men and you want my help noticing if the guy is investing in the connection, do click that first link. It's the guy checklist, 9 steps you can run any guy through. Takes less than 5 minutes. I've had really great feedback from it. If you like my style, if you want to be with a coach who is going to help you be more real and integrated and do it from a compassionate but objective perspective, click the second link because you might want to come and be part of my transformation program. As always, I'm Jack. Thanks for being here. Leave me a comment. Let me know how this is landing. I want to know your experience, and I'll be with you again soon.